Welcome back to Just Giants with Grump and the Cranky Fan, the best damn podcast for the best damn football team. I'm your host, the Football Grump, and with me as always is Mike the Cranky Fan.
Well, not always, because I was out for the count this week, Grump, but I'm feeling well enough to be back. So it's been a rough week. It's been a rough week. It's been a rough year. I've been sick a lot this year. I don't know what the problem is.
Yeah,
Maybe because the Giants suck. I don't
yeah,
know.
it's made you physically ill. You've developed a long-term illness.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't COVID, but it was some sort of flu or stomach something where I just nonstop horribly coughing. And if you guys listened to the episode last week, you probably had to they probably turned it off because you're sick of hearing me cough the whole time. But it was awful. Today's the first day I've been feeling well enough to get out of the apartment. And, went to the NYCFC game for a while, and I don't know, man. Getting old stinks.
Did you just spend your whole weekend on the couch watching some USFL?
Uh, I spent all week on the couch doing nothing. I watched a bunch of crap, and I realized that there's a lot of garbage on Netflix and all these things we pay money for. There's really, there's nothing good. Did you watch any USFL, by the way?
I did. I watched some of it. There's some good, there's some bad.
Before, I guess we should make it official. Who we're actually rooting for in this league? Are you rooting for the Generals?
I am. I'm picking a team from each division or whatever. I think it's like North and South, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Generals, of course. I'm kind of a fan of the New Orleans Breakers. I don't know. Seemed cool, like the uniforms. I'm into that. That's cool. I didn't pick for any real reason.
Can you name the original cities the Breakers played in before New Orleans in the first league?
Portland, wasn't it?
New Orleans?
It was Portland, wasn't it?
They started in Boston.
Oh.
And then they went to New Orleans and then ended up in Portland.
Oh, okay. So I wasn't far off.
No, it wasn't bad. No.
Okay.
I've made my decision since I am not from New Jersey.
You're going to be the Bandits fan?
I will be a Tampa Bay Bandits fan in honor of Steve Spurrier, original coach of the Bandits.
That's fair.
Their asses kicked.
They did. That was the game I watched today. I didn't watch the 7 o'clock game, but I did have the 3 o'clock game on while I cleaned my whole apartment, and I watched them get the shit kicked out of them. But they're coached by Todd Haley, though, so
interesting.
That's it's not can't be the worst coach in the league, right? I don't know. They're 0-2 though, so maybe. I don't know. Either way, watch some USFL, getting used to that. Some of it's really cool, man. The broadcasts, they spend a lot of time with the comms interactions between coach and quarterback. Like there's like whole minutes of absolute silence from the commentators, which is really interesting and cool.
Well,
and
we've had some great, advances like in broadcast from the old XFL and different little things they brought in, whether it's the camera behind the quarterback or different things. So that's what these leagues are for. I mean, these are not the NFL. Don't look at it. It's just if you love the game of football and you want to see something a little different and quirky, and go for it.
It's kind of fun to watch, and I kind of watch it the same way I watch college ball, in that I'm watching individual players that kind of stand out and stuff like that. Kind of the same. I guess it's sort of like a farm league. I don't know. But in more important to Giants news, but less important news in, I guess, the universe, there's some strange Kadarius Toney trade rumors here, and I wouldn't say that they're like illegitimate rumors. I mean, this is Pat Leonard who reported it via his TikTok, I guess. But I mean, he's a legitimate reporter. I mean, it's not. We can laugh about that, but this is an actual report. This is not just like an anonymous Twitter account or something like that where I'm hearing around. I mean, this is Pat Leonard who said it, so he's a legitimate reporter, and I believe Jordan Raanan backed it up. So the news is that he's being shopped. Now, that's what I find interesting. Before I get into my analysis of what I think is going on here, why don't you hit your 2 cents here, because you've been AFK for a little while.
Yeah, I mean, when I first saw it, I was just like, first of all, I usually don't get my NFL news from TikTok. I'm a 49-year-old male. I'm not on TikTok. So I thought that was a strange way to break it. I don't know if he's trying to come up with a new way to hit the tween audience with whatever he's trying to, get to that audience. I don't know, but it just seemed like a weird place. And just I just get the sense that ever since the draft of Kadarius Toney, that, you know, the media doesn't like him. And I don't know what that reason is. I mean, I think because it took him about 20 minutes to find the story from when he was a sophomore about the air gun thing. Um, Maybe it's the fact that because one of his interests is, being a rap artist. I don't know. But it just seems like, you know, it seems like the media is out to get him. And I don't know if it's because he wasn't anywhere on their draft boards or all these things coming up before it, but he had a very unconventional rookie year, and certainly not an ideal year. Having the COVID, having the injuries, he didn't show up for the was it what did he not show up for also in the beginning?
The
Grump,
rookie mini camp, he
the
didn't
rookie
show
minicamp.
up
There was
for.
some issue because everybody, until you get your contract officially signed, you're covered by some sort of waiver, but he didn't show up, and you know he's a different bird. He was like that at Florida, and again, I know Kadarius Toney a lot longer than most of the people that are Giant fans or even Giant media members. I've been following him since his recruitment to Florida, and he's a guy that, yes, he would make these comments that he wants to be a rapper. That's his dream and stuff and everything. But he never was an issue at Florida. Never missed practice, never was a disciplinary issue. The thing with the air gun's been well documented and has been addressed, and has never been issues since then with that. I don't know. And I think for something this come up, let's use logic a little bit. And let's just think about what Kadarius Toney is. Kadarius Toney, while he wasn't a draft pick of this current front office and coaching staff and everything, he's still in the second year of a rookie deal. He still has tons of talent. He hasn't stepped on the field yet with this coaching staff. Why would you all of a sudden put him on the block when you have no idea what this guy is? And I don't want to hear any of this nonsense about, well, I heard that he really connected with Joe Shane, and that's obviously not true because he's not showing up to OTAs or to these voluntary OTAs, right? That's what we're calling these?
Organized team activities.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, these OTAs. So it's like, that doesn't mean anything. It's strongly encouraged. You like these guys to be there, but they are voluntary for a reason. That was negotiated by the union to make them voluntary, and that's his right to not go if he doesn't want to go. Is it the smartest decision? Smartest business and professional decision? Maybe not, but is it something where you're just like, fuck him, and I'm gonna move off him and probably get 70 or 60 cents off the dollar because he's not showing.
All right, so this is where I'm going to jump in here with a bit of my analysis. Is that this trade situation to me seems like a lot more is being made out of a conversation than maybe is actually what happened. My theory here is that this was more of a conversation around the league between Joe Shane and other GMs, maybe just one, in which the sentence was said, "What would you give up for Kadarius Toney?" or something like that, meaning that he is just simply not untradeable. Which we've said before. No, there's very few people on this roster that are untradeable. Very, very few.
And also, right now they're going back to what Joe Shane said was like, just a few weeks ago he was called untradeable. Now that's not what Joe Shane said.
It's not what he said.
He said it was very unlikely to be traded. That doesn't mean untradeable, and he would not be doing his job if every person. Hey, if someone came to me for Andrew Thomas and said, "I'll give you 3 number 1 picks right now for him," done.
Yeah, absolutely.
No one's going to do it, but that doesn't mean he's untradeable.
But this nobody on this roster should be safe because it's not a very good roster, and it needs a lot to get better. So everything should be listened to. Now, the reason I say that this was just kind of brought up is because it doesn't make any sense for them to trade him before June 1st. And by that, I mean they don't save any money. In fact, they lose money. So this is a team that currently can't sign its own draft class if they were to draft at the positions they have right now. They cannot afford to sign them right now. It makes no sense to trade a player. If they trade him before June 1st, they will take on $2.25 million dead cap hit. They already can't afford to sign some of the players. Now, if this conversation were to go the way I said, there's no impetus to be actively shopping him right now, like we need to get rid of him. More so, what would you give up for him? Considering the long term, considering beyond June 1st, would I move this player? Potentially. What would I get? And I think that's totally fine. And also, it seems very odd to me to be so angry about a player not going to a voluntary workout that you would immediately trade him when you're going to take on a dead cap hit, and when you can't afford to take on a dead cap hit, by the way, and not even see what he can do on the field for you, not even meet the guy, all because he didn't go to something that he is not in. It's not required of him. It makes no sense to make that drastic of a move. And not to mention, this is a team that very desperately needs a lot more help. If he's traded, wide receiver suddenly becomes a need. Pre-draft, that makes no sense at all. It makes no sense.
We covered the need for, because if you look on paper, we have for wide receiver, everybody has a question mark. There's injury concerns, there's depth issues, there's, why would you get rid of the guy who could potentially be the best one of the bunch? It's untapped potential at this moment.
Even if he does come with the injury concern, it's just, why would you create a bigger hole there when it's already kind of a tenuous situation at best? It's more the way I see it. And you've got clear holes everywhere else on the roster. It makes no sense to make a bigger hole there. None of this seems like a reaction, I'll say, to the voluntary workouts thing. I think that this actually was said, but was in part of a separate conversation, more just so trying to see what he's worth around the league. I think that's it.
And I think that's quite honestly Joe Shane's job.
Yeah, sure. I have no problem with that.
What the market value of number 1 to number 93 on this roster is. What can I get from at any given moment for any one of these players if an opportunity presents itself to make this team better? I mean, okay, different organization is working with the guy who drafted him this last year, so it's different circumstances, but it doesn't matter. I just, unless they get an offer that knocks their socks off, they're not just getting rid of them just because they're not Odell Beckham him, as a lot of people are saying also.
Right, yeah.
I don't see this to be the same at all. I mean, Odell Beckham actively worked his way to get off this Giants team, did everything he can do, basically, besides taking the World Series trophy and driving around the parking lot like George Costanza did to get fired, basically, or traded. So, I mean, he's a different guy. And don't look into the clues, because, he's a different generation than us. What he puts on his Instagram, don't go to your Rosetta Stone to try to analyze what he's saying on these things. Guys are young and they're different these days. They say different things. They have different language, different, the way people talk is different than it used to be. Athletes now, especially, rookies, second-year guys, they've come through a whole different wave of college than the guys before them. They now know of the transfer portal. They know that they're not just locked into a college for 4 years. They can move wherever they want. And maybe in the back of their mind, they feel that's the same way in the NFL. Just because they draft him, he doesn't have to be there. So they think a lot differently than football players 4 or 5 years ago do. And let's just let this breathe a little bit. Now, if he turns out getting traded on Thursday, then we were wrong. And maybe there was some smoke to the fire, and good to Pat Leonard for having that scoop. But
I'd be surprised.
The money doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
I think if they trade him before the season starts, I'd be very surprised.
Yeah.
Even after June 1st,
I would too. I would say I'd be surprised if Kadarius Toney is traded at all, before the season starts. But I would be pretty stunned if he's traded before June 1st, because I just don't see how it works in favor of the team. I don't see what the upside is.
He's not a cancer that has to be getting rid of immediately.
And yeah, I mean,
if anything, if he has to get rid of immediately, he's not going to the OTA. He's not causing himself to be a distraction there. He's away from the team.
Yeah.
So that doesn't make any sense.
Um, in other news, the Giants signed a tight end, Jordan Atkins, 2018 third-round pick by the Texans. I believe it was 98th overall from the University of Central Florida. Last year, in 2021, he played with the Giants' current tight end coach, Andy Bischoff, so there's familiarity there. Over his career since 2018, 114 catches, 1,260 yards, 3 touchdowns. Biggest thing right here is that tight end was a disaster of a situation, right? I mean, they had lost Evan Ingram, Kyle Rudolph, Caden Smith had to go, Levine Toilolo was gone. They had effectively nobody there. Effectively nobody but depth level practice squad, not even depth level, practice squad level players were the only ones there. They went out, they signed Ricky Seals-Jones, who is a fringe depth player, I would say. I would say he's probably a tight end 3 in an ideal scenario. Which is still not a good situation, but bringing in Jordan Atkins to kind of be tight end 2 with Ricky Seals-Jones as tight end 1, that makes that situation go down from an absolute disaster to we need to upgrade this, right?
Mm-hmm. It puts it into the pile of there's a lot we need to upgrade for sure, but not like dire straits.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually what we're going to get into right now. So we're going to kind of just basically go over the Giants' current draft situation. We're not going to talk players too much right now. We're going to talk positions. As part of this overall off-season review, they have to, get better from last year, and a lot of that comes with players leaving that you can't afford to keep, etc., and that leaves holes all over the place. So I broke this draft situation down into a series of 3 different categories. Absolute musts. These are positions that need to be upgraded, absolutely need to be upgraded at the end of this draft because they don't really have a whole lot of money for free agents after this, if they have enough money for their draft class at all. The next category is needs. These positions absolutely need to be upgraded. However, it is not dire to the point where they cannot field a playable team if it's not upgraded this year. It just needs to be done to get better. And then the final category is positions to strongly consider upgrading. These ones can be pushed off to next year if needed, but in the immediate future, they will need to be upgraded. Those are the 3 categories. Now, normally there would be a 4th, and that's one to consider for the future, but this team has so many needs all over the place here, it's not even worth listing that category right now. So we're going to start with, and off to the side of the screen here, you can see the current depth chart for the New York Giants. And we're going to start with musts, and that's going to be with the boxes around it, all these positions right here. Most important must has to be right tackle. The Giants cannot go into the season with Matt Gano playing right tackle. It can't happen. They currently have a fringe depth level play. He should be probably closer to a practice squad player as the penciled in starter at right tackle, and that just cannot happen.
You only have certain opportunities to draft a franchise guy at a position of need like this. The expectation is this team will be better next year, and then the year after that, and the year after that. And that means you're not going to be drafting as high anymore. Thank God. We'd rather be drafting in the late teens into the 20s. It means you're a playoff team. But, while we're here, you need to grab the guys of the utmost importance. We'll debate it to the end of time, whether Saquon Barkley was the right move or not, but that was an excellent opportunity to get, an offensive tackle or a quarterback of the future. We passed. We can't do it again, especially when we're completely resetting this team, this franchise going forward. And, it depends on how the first 4 picks fall ahead of us, which there's a run on first, but there should be a right tackle out there waiting for us to get who's going to be elite and someone that doesn't necessarily be a Pro Bowler for the next 25 years, but someone who could be the cornerstone on the right side for us for years to come, at least until that second contract. And we can't fumble this. We can't punt again to the next draft. To me, it's urgency need number 1, 2, and 3. Right tackle.
I would absolutely agree with that. Another position that absolutely must be upgraded, I'm going to list this one as the number 2 need, is safety. Julian Love probably shouldn't be starting. Normally, this position, I would say, would go under the needs category since they have what I would consider to be playable players as starters here. I think Julian Love is okay as a starter. Xavier McKinney is very good as a starter. But the fact that there's absolutely zero depth and Julian Love probably shouldn't be starting pushes this into the must category. They absolutely must get a safety. They might as well get one that should be a starter alongside of Xavier McKinney.
So what you're saying is you're not actually saying that the second guy we should draft should be a safety. You're putting this as these are the critical need guys because
I would say with the Giants having 2 first-round picks and 2 third-round picks, these 3 position groups that I'm saying should be picked within the first 5 picks that they have.
Okay, perfect.
So the first 3 rounds.
I agree as well, and I think the way we think the draft, if we were GMs of this team, we'd be very strongly considering moving that second pick for more picks this year and into the future. But
correct.
You're right. I definitely safety is a position you need to draft at number 7, but you could definitely get mid first round or even a high second round. Could be a starter.
Even third round, I would say you could probably get a starter at safety.
Right.
Especially because you're pairing him with Xavier McKinney. I mean, this isn't a guy who's going to try and beat Xavier McKinney for playing time or anything like that. So you can probably get yourself a safety that's a little limited in terms of athleticism, maybe can't run sideline to sideline the way that McKinney can or something like that. That kind of pushes that need to pick so high up a little bit down. Mm-hmm. The last position here I'm going to mention as a must is corner. And I say that because it seems at this point it's a very high likelihood that James Bradberry will not play a down for the Giants this year. It seems all but, foregone conclusion here that he will be traded simply because he's in the last year of his contract. He may not necessarily fit Martindale's scheme too well, and getting rid of his contract allows them the financial feasibility to sign this draft class. So it seems, as much as they probably don't want to let go of him, it seems to be the only way that it's really going to happen. And all the pieces seem to be there that even he knows he's not going to be around.
So it's interesting. You have corner ahead of edge rusher.
I do, because I don't think that edge rusher is a must, and we can bump now into the needs category here where I have edge rusher, because I think Quincy Roche and Azeez Ojulari, that's a playable roster. It's not enviable. It needs to get upgraded, but they can at least go into, if that's how they go in week 1 and they've acquired only depth behind that, that's not good, but it's playable. They can. Mm-hmm. I mean, If James Bradberry is traded, then we're looking at Rodarius Williams, who is a 6th-round pick from last year, coming off of an ACL injury, starting opposite Adoree Jackson,
right?
Or Aaron Robinson, who's more likely to be situated in the slot, or he fits better in the slot position, and is also he's a 2nd-year player. He was a 3rd-round pick. I mean, it's really not, to me. If James Bradberry is gone, it's a must. It needs to be upgraded somewhere in those first 5 picks that they have.
It gives you really a sense of urgency of getting this Bradberry deal done this week.
No, they don't need to sign the draft picks to pick them.
Yeah, but I mean, it kind of helps with your direction of the draft a little more.
Yeah, but
I mean, if they find some way to keep Bradberry on the roster somehow, and they don't find a dance partner.
Well, even if they do, he's not signed through next year, so he would still need to be upgraded next year anyway.
That's true.
So I don't know. To me, that pushes that into the must category here. Bumping into the needs, edge is my number 1 need. Typically, when you're going into a draft, you want to have as few musts as possible so you can focus on your needs. Unfortunately, that's just not the situation with the Giants this year, in my opinion. I think those 3 positions, they absolutely must come out of the draft with players there, starters there.
So spoiler alert, I'm going to be participating in a mock draft this week with a bunch of other, from one guy from every team. But the rules of this draft were no trades. Mm-hmm. So you had to draft 5th and 7th for the Giants. And I'm going to be taking as we did the draft, I am taking a defensive end with 7, although that's not what I'd want to do. So and my argument was going to be more that that's a significant need for this team, and when you're drafting this high, you should take the edge rusher over a cornerback. But I am going to preface in this draft by saying my choice would be to trade down, and that makes me feel more comfortable trading and drafting a cornerback if we trade down to like 16 or 17 as opposed to at 7. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. These needs picks here, where I have edge here, this is one where I think you can kind of stretch into the first 6 picks. You can kind of stretch into the 5th round that some of these positions need to be picked up. And edge for me is the top need outside of musts. I think that they need to get better pass rush from their edges. They need to stop manufacturing pass rush with blitzes. And Azeez Ojulari needs a bookend. You know what I mean? He played much better than I expected last year. He looks like he bulked up.
I think he needs to be the bookend to somebody else.
Correct, yeah. There needs to be... Yeah. Well, I mean, I think just as long as there's a capable pass rusher, somebody else who can win, even if it's just as much as he is, that's a huge upgrade from what they've had.
Trying to get to become a really good defense, I think he's like your number 2 guy.
Oh, yeah, I would agree with that. The next need on my board here is tight end. You know, this is now downgraded from a must. Ricky Seals-Jones and Jordan Atkins, that's enough right there where they can at least field a team. Mm-hmm. Now, if they want... Now they don't need... I was worried to the point where I almost felt like they needed to get 2 tight ends in this draft in order to be anything in this. And now they can focus on getting a tight end that they think is the best fit for this team. And, you know, hopefully he's ahead of Seals-Jones and Atkins in this depth chart and pushes them down a little bit. But even if he's number 2 to them, at least he gets some playing time, he gets some experience, and you can continue to model him to the future. But absolutely there needs to be another tight end in the mix that is, you know, viewed for the future here beyond, you know, just, you know, next year. Next position of need, I would say linebacker. You know, Blake Martinez is coming off of an injury, and he's in the last year of his contract. Next to him is Tay Crowder, and Tay Crowder is just okay at best. You're looking at a lot of ceiling there. And then even beyond that, there's really no workable depth there. Mm-hmm. I think that getting a linebacker would be a huge bump right now. And if they don't get a new linebacker this year, I would say next year this position becomes a must.
A must.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
problem is we can't get everything this year and have the money to do it by means beyond the draft. So it's just kind of, you know, deciding who from these categories we're taking, and it's very difficult. We're in a real tight jam right now.
It's very likely that one of these positions that I consider a need will not be addressed in the draft. It's very likely, or will be addressed with such a low draft value that it will not impact very
And again,
much.
that goes back to my statement I made about that mock draft where, you know, are we going to draft it in 5 or 7 again? Maybe, but probably not.
Right.
So that's, to me, that's where those, you know, that offensive tackle, that edge rusher, you can get them that high, you get them there. That's where the must comes in for me. And everything else, if we can't get them this year, that's okay. That's where next year will come in, and then the year after even. But
just what I was saying before, just because edge isn't a must, edge is a need. So, you know, the musts just have to be addressed in the first 5 picks that they have, which is 2 firsts, a second, and 2 thirds.
Oh, see, I'm looking at it slightly different. To me, it's a must based on where we are drafting as of right now.
No, I understand that. So, but what I'm saying is just because I have corner as a must and edge is only a need, it doesn't mean that I'm going to go corner with the 7th pick overall. I could still go edge. You know, I just need to address that, you know, maybe with a little less urgency. The last position in need I have is guard here. I'm viewing guard as a little bit more important than center because, you know, between Garcia, Lemieux, Wes Martin, Ben Bredesen, Nick Gates, these guys are all either depth level at best or they're coming off of injury and we don't really know, or, you know, they need to strengthen this spot. The interior of this offensive line, let's be honest, the offensive line needed 4 spots upgraded. They went out and they got a starting right guard. They absolutely must get a right tackle, so that's 2 of 4. This would be the third spot, getting that left guard to play.
I think for those names you listed, who could be potentially the starting center, we could get by with that one. And then worry about it next year.
Exactly. So this is my lowest must. But I mean, at this point, they must do something. They need to do something about this offensive line, because over the course of the next couple of years, again, this just speaks to the next thing. If they ignore it this year, it becomes a must next year, because some of these guys aren't signed through next year, and also they're another year older. Some of these guys will probably have another year of tape proving that they're not very good.
And next year, you want to have more options than just, here's a couple of musts we have to get first.
Right. Well, also next year there's more money available to address musts and needs and stuff via free agency as well as the draft.
Our cap situation will be better next year, and there'll be more money available to everybody next year.
Yes.
So.
Now moving into the last spot here, the strongly consider positions. I'm going to say again, safety. Even if they do address it by getting a starting safety to play over Julian Love, that means that there are only 3 safeties on this roster. Julian Love is not signed through next year. They need to get depth. Getting a safety in the later rounds of this draft may yield results of value. Without having to expend a whole lot, they can get a depth level player at a depth level position in the draft. Defensive line, I think, is another position that they should strongly consider. Dexter Lawrence's contract is ending soon, whether they exercise his 5th-year option or not. He's not here for much longer. Leonard Williams is getting older, and it's unclear as to whether or not he will sign another contract with this team or not. And
he's also a potential cut in a year or two.
Sure.
Yeah.
And not only that, there's not really a whole lot at nose tackle right now. So, I mean, there's multiple reasons why you would consider defensive line. Now, again, this is one that they can put off for a year. These are positions that they can put off for a year if they want to.
We want to start that assembly line of next guy up after somebody leaves, and we have not been able to do that. We had to start from scratch.
Because we're always scrambling to fix holes.
Exactly. We want to get out of that.
Next position would be center. They went out and they signed John Feliciano. Maybe Nick Gates is a center if he can continue to rehab and is able to play. Maybe Shane Lemieux can snap the ball a little bit, but I don't like operating on maybes, and I don't expect John Feliciano to be much of a starter, let alone a starter for a long time here. So I would say that they need to start looking for the center of their future, and start looking at building this team the correct way. And meanwhile, there's really no depth behind John Feliciano for this year, so that's not really enviable either.
Can Max Garcia play center?
He can. I don't think I really want him playing anywhere, if I'm being honest. He's not very good. I mean,
I remember when he was leaving UF that he was getting some coaching from Pouncey about how to become a center, like to help his status in the draft and stuff. So.
If only Pouncey gave some of his skill to him, that would be.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
That would be nice. Yeah. And last position that they should strongly consider is tight end again. I mean, if there are 2 tight ends, if they have an opportunity to get another tight end that they can groom, if it just happens to be sitting there late in the draft and shouldn't be, maybe they value him a little bit more. Absolutely. Ricky Seals-Jones, Jordan Atkins, one of those 2 should be tight end 3. Those shouldn't be your 1-2 punch. So that's just kind of how I view this roster. I don't know. Is there anything that you feel I left out or maybe misplaced?
No, I think it's they're very fair and very valid categorizations. I mean, when you have so much you have to fix on this team, you have to think of it from a logical standpoint. What's the most important, and what is the urgency based on the picks that we have? I mean, where we are drafting, I still think means so much to all of this. That if you have the opportunity to get the best at something, which you're drafting right now at 5 and 7, what do I want to get the best at? Why I want to get the best? I want to get the best tackle I can get. Hell, I would be even open if on my board the 2 best tackles are available, taking them both. I mean, just because we made moves in this offseason doesn't mean we're finished. But having those high picks means I want to get the best at positions, and to me, that's where your tackle, that's where your edge guys are coming in. If we are moving around in the draft, that second pick, and thinking about round 2 and 3 and etc., then I think you're really spot on with it. Where you need to address these guys. You can get the best guy on your board at that position and jump on them. We can't whiff on players, and we can't whiff on positions, and can't overload on something because we want to have overloading depth where we're going to be still having glaring holes in the positions. We have to kind of level this roster out, and it starts now.
I agree, and for a while now, this team has been in its own rebuild mode of varying degrees, and my motto, I guess, is whenever you're rebuilding is don't take chances. Take the sure things. Mm-hmm. Don't be stupid. Don't outthink the draft. Let the talent come to you. Trade out if nothing is there. See what you can get. Trade up if something you want is dangling where it shouldn't be. Trust your board. Don't take chances. Don't swing for the fences here. I mean, you need to get better.
You either don't have a plan or you don't trust your plan. And if that's the case, you need to be fired as your GM.
Or you just have the luxury of taking chances. This team doesn't have the luxury of taking chances. Mm-hmm. This team needs to get better before it can start taking chances on a athletic freak with no production or something like that.
Right. The Giants are not a team that needs to draft somebody to sell tickets. They're not a team that wants to be flashy so they could be on TV on Monday Night More. That's not this organization. They're fortunate in that. Stick to the plan, execute the plan, the multi-year plan to make this team right, and we'll be fine. And that's something, if you're thinking about the guy you want to reach for, you don't get him, and it doesn't pan out for you, and it works for the other team, good for them. But something? You hear the stories of the guys that are like, well, he was the 18th pick in the draft, and how come 7 other teams missed him? There's a lot of other stories of the 18th guy where 17 guys didn't pick him and he busted. So,
yeah.
Exceptions don't prove rules.
And
Exceptions
also, yeah,
shiny examples, but they don't prove things.
Yeah. So with that said, this is draft week. So happy draft week, everyone. I hope you're as excited as we are. We have a bunch of things coming up in the coming days. We'll have another episode for Thursday morning. As our final pre-draft workup, we'll be talking about exactly what we want to do at 5 and 7 and 36 and all the picks going through the draft, what we kind of want to focus on, where we want to get better, what we're expecting, things like that, and any new news that comes up at that time. So that will be right here on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, SoundCloud, YouTube. We'll have that episode available for you on nights 1 and 2 of the draft. That is Thursday and Friday. I will be live on Talking Giants with Bobby and Justin and I don't know, maybe other people. I'm not actually 100% sure of the details. I am going to see if that will be streamed also through our YouTube account as well. If that's feasible and possible, then it will be. And so be sure to follow on Twitter to find out if that's going to happen or not. So at @football_grump, at the Cranky Fan, at Just Giants Pod.
And I will be on the FL Team site. They are doing a mock draft. I'll be representing the Giants for our 2 picks. So once I get the information of where that is and when it's all completed, I'll send out on my Twitter account, the Cranky Fan, so you can follow along and see how I did relative to all our peers around the league. So looking forward to that as well.
And if I'm going to try and get that link in the description below. It just may be a couple of days late, so you might be watching this video before it's there.
Yeah. And on Thursday is my anniversary, so I will not be on any draft shows that night. So we will be going out to dinner because it's my anniversary.
Guaranteed he'll be on his phone, though.
I might be, but something. It's our 15th anniversary, which is a very, very big deal. So I'll be unavailable for any media requests if they do trade Kadarius, Toney, or something crazy happens. You'll have to hear what I have to say on Friday morning.
There you go. All right, everyone. We will see you later on this week. Go Giants.